So what if I told you that you, yes you, can make gorgeous cookies like this with these basic food coloring things that everybody has in their cupboard and dollar store paintbrushes? I'll show you how. Yes, it is completely true. You can make totally gorgeous sugar cookies using dollar store brushes and just really simple food coloring and make them look like they came from some completely boutique place. Now in this video, I'm not gonna go through exactly what recipe I use, like step by step, but I will list those down in the comments, and you can definitely read more information about everything on the blog post if something isn't covered in this video. For my sugar cookie recipe, I like to use one that's really simple and that doesn't have cream of tartar in it. I don't know why, I just like the kind that are with butter and not margarine. If you're making sugar cookies and you really haven't before, one of the key things is to make sure that you let your dough set in the fridge for at least a half an hour and ideally for a couple of hours. It's going to be a lot easier to work with. When you're ready to work with that dough, then you're going to take it out. It'll be a bit stiff. Just let it maybe sit on the counter for about another half an hour and then work it out, roll it out. You will thank me. Your recipe will turn out so much better and you'll have basically perfect sugar cookies. For royal icing, there's a couple of different recipes you can try. The one that I use in the video is with cream of tartar. I've also made royal icing with lemon before, and I find that there really isn't any difference between it. So just use whichever kind works better for you and what ingredients you have on hand. So let's get to the decorating part. When you're planning this project out, you definitely want to space it out over 2 or 3 days, unless you have a full day with no distractions to commit to it. So what I did in my situation is I made the cookies during the day, and then I made the royal icing in the night, and then I put the royal icing on the cookies and then spread it all out so it was all perfect. I let that royal icing dry overnight. It really does need to dry overnight. And then the next morning, I was able to decorate the sugar cookies. So if you have people that you want to do this with for fun, what I recommend doing is making the cookies ahead of time, icing them ahead of time, and then just bring iced cookies out and do your project from there. To start our decorating, we're going to pour out just 1 or 2 drops of every color that comes with our box. I'm just using a regular plate, nothing special. If you have one of those nice palettes that comes with painting kits, you can use that if it hasn't been used for anything else or it's well washed. Then I'm going to take my water and just try to drop a little bit of water nearby, and then I'll mix that up. There it goes. And then I do that for all the other colors. I've added about 3 or 4 drops per color, and now I'm gonna make my color palette. I know that I'm gonna be using lots of greens, so what I do is I just spoon out some greens into a different section so that I have some options. So this is a very bright green. I'm gonna take a little dot of red and put that in each of my greens just to tone them down a little bit. So there, now my greens will be a little muddier. And then I want one green that has a little bit more yellow to it. And then I want one green that also has a little bit more blue to it. Then for a brown, I'm going to take my green, come over to where my red is, and then I'll mix my green and my red together. Now my basic color palette is set up and we're ready to go. We're going to start with the easiest of these projects, which is the candy cane. To start our candy cane, I'm going to take some red and do diagonal stripes. When you're taking your color, try not to get too much water and color on your brush, as it will bleed, and then the cookies won't look quite as pretty. Great. Now we'll wash that off. And then we'll do the green. I would like pretty much a basic green, so I'll stick to that part. And done. So now our candy cane can dry for a little bit, and let's move on to the next project. Let's do the tree. So for the tree, I like to start with more of my brown green, and then we just do random strokes. Keep it light. If you want, you can color the trunk at the bottom if you have a trunk on your cookie cutter. Then I'm going to move over to my bluer green. Do the same thing, just really easy strokes. If we run out of paint, get some more. Great, I'm gonna go now for my more yellow green. Mute that a little. Great, and then I'm going to finish up with my more true green. And you don't have to go with exactly the same color palette that I did for my trees. You can go with whatever variations make your particular little heart happy. And that's it. Watercolor Christmas tree. Now we're going to move on to these stockings. So this one is really simple. I'm not even going to bother showing you this one because all you have to do is paint this part red or green, and then with your thinner brush come up and write the kid's name on. And then I've done the opposite here for my other child, so it's super easy. I'm going to show you how to do something like this if you want to take it up a notch and do plaid, and I promise you this is super easy. So we start with our blank cookie here. Make sure our brush is clean. And I'm going to start with the brown color. So I know that my kid's name is going to go about there. And I just make lines kind of like we did for the candy cane. Now, I don't have to use my thin brush on all of these. I could also alternate with my thick brush, which I think I'm going to do just cause. Okay, so now we're going to do our red. That one with a thicker brush up and down. So these colors actually work nicer. If you do have the gel colors, they just set a little bit better, but I really wanted to just use the cheap ones that I thought would be pretty accessible to everybody. Because I know this year we don't want to go outside unnecessarily if we don't have to. Okay, now I'm getting a bit too much of a brown because that red one there is still pretty wet. So that's just something to consider too. Now I'm gonna go with it. That's fine. That can be, it can be a greeny, muddy color for this one. That's okay. Okay, and I'm gonna switch back to my thin brush, and then I'm gonna try to get like a really true green in that one. And we're just basically filling in the spaces that don't have anything yet. And done. Now all I have to do is write my daughter's name in. Okay, now we're gonna get into the harder stuff. So I've taken one of these ornaments that I have here, and I'm going to make it eventually look like this, like my wreath guy. So what I do is take one of my greens, doesn't matter which one you pick, and we're just going to draw a leaf like that, an evergreen leaf, just really simple strokes. Then I move it around. I just find it's easier to move it around with the strokes. Every time I don't move it around, they just kind of get off. And like, I'm very beginner with watercolor, and I'm kind of assuming anyone who else is watching this is probably on the beginner side too. So we just want to keep it as easy on ourselves as possible. Okay, great. We've got those sides done. Now let's take, I'll just mix something a little more yellow and green. So we've got a different color. Anyway, it's fine. Okay, now we're gonna do our next one. Then we turn it. Turn it. Turn it again, last time. Okay, great. And then we just have to fill in those little spots. So I'm gonna do more of a bluey green for this one. And that's it. I'm gonna do one more overhead just so you can see a little bit better. I don't have a great overhead setup. Finally, we're moving on to our absolute hardest cookie in this watercolor series. I'm just going to show you on this bell the different strokes, and then I'll go through and paint it on my ornament for real. So our first thing is how to do these little leaves. So my little leaves, I go like that, and then I just sort of wash the brush out more like in this direction. And then I have a leaf shape. Again, we're not worrying if it's super perfect, just going with it. Then a more coniferous leaf shape, like you saw in the wreath before, line, and then diagonal strokes. And then I have my cedar shape. For the cedar shape, what I do is I'll draw a line, and then I'll kind of just do some wiggly things. And when you think about it, it's like, what? That doesn't look like anything. But when it's all together, it's great. Finally, for the berries that you'll see, it's just dots like this. They don't have to be perfect, and you just put them wherever you need. So for this one, I've already drawn in my leaves. I'm going to start with that evergreen shape. And basically all I'm doing is I'm changing my color, and I'm making 2 of every shape I want to make. Then I'll move on to the cedar shape. And I'm really not worrying about being super perfect with this because, again, I'm very much a beginner in watercolor, and I'm assuming you are too. And if you're better than me, man, I would love to see your stuff. I bet your stuff looks so awesome. And then I'll do a different green. I still have some space. Maybe I'll do another leaf shape that's sort of similar to that brown one that I've got going there. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to fill it in any little spots with the berries. I find with the berries that I always have to dab my brush off, and if I don't, they just get a little too runny and then they look a bit strange. And you can do them in groups of 3, you can do them in groups of 2, like really, this is your cookie, so do whatever you like with it. Okay, let's do one last thing to sort of fill in spots. Sometimes what I do is I just put in like little dots of leaves with my brush. And again, they're not super perfect. I'm just filling in white space so that I am happy with how it looks. Maybe a green there. We'll do one more little thing there and done. And there we have it. Our project is finished. We have totally beautiful sugar cookies that you could be absolutely proud to gift to somebody. A nice little thing for family or kids, put their names on it. And you didn't have to spend a lot of money. It just took some time. And really, if you can make a brush stroke, you can make these cookies. Finally, if you're wondering, do these cookies actually taste as good as they look? Well, let's try one. Definitely. Normally during the rest of the year, this channel is devoted to gardening in cold climates, but for the month of December, we really can't do any gardening anyway. So I like to take a little break from gardening and focus on Christmas crafts that I think someone who is interested in gardening would also really enjoy making. If you like this and more gardening advice, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.